Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Mastering Competitor Analysis, Your Strategic Edge webinar. My name is Karlee May, and this webinar is in partnership with Sandbox. If you previously joined our last marketing webinar, this is the next one in our series. So after today, the goal is that you'll leave with a framework to spot your competitors, dissect their strategy, and turn insights into action for your own business. So we will be going through the ins and outs of why we need a competitor analysis, what it does, and how it affects your plan and your business. So why competitor analysis matters. So when we're looking at what our plans are for the next year, we want to make sure that we are also fitting within the framework of the business ecosystem that we are in. So we don't want to be flying blind. We want to make sure that we're not pricing too low, too high, depending on our offering. We don't want to be missing market gaps that could be opportunities. We could also discover new services and products that our competitors are offering. We also want to find our unique edge, and we want to define that more succinctly. We have our offerings, we know our value proposition, but why would a customer choose us over someone else? So this can help sharpen that. There's also improving our marketing and offers. So we want to refine our messaging and offerings based on what works and what doesn't in the market. So we could, by looking at our competitors, seeing what has failed and what's worked for them, and what could, if we could be offering something that doesn't actually work in the market. So this is a way that we can get an overview of that. And this can also help us anticipate market trends. So by looking at and analyzing what our competitors are doing, we can see, is there a pattern? Is there a shift? Are our competitors going in a direction that maybe we're not? And maybe there's good reasons that we're not going in that direction. And this will also help you have a lens and a stronger understanding of your own competitive advantage. So customer loyalty. Why are they loyal to you? What are reasons that they could forgo that loyalty as well? Why else might they go to your competitors? So like, where are you getting that repeat business? Also understanding your brand awareness. How much of the market actually recognizes and knows you? And how can you use that for leverage to attract a wider audience? You can also look at your pricing position. Are you a cost leader? Are you entering as a premium provider? Are you value driven? You want to make sure that you understand how the market perceives you in comparison to your competitors in terms of pricing. And then there's also other factors like your operational efficiency, your product differentiation. So really seeing how you carve out your unique niche within your market. And this always comes back to your strategic goals. So looking at how you align your business strategy is always number one. So we always want to make sure that this folds under what you're doing and what you're planning for the future, whether it's the next, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, maybe it's, over the space of 1 year, 3 year, your 5-year plan. But understanding how you're going to move in the market is also determined by your competitors. So your strategic planning, how is that looking with your goals and capabilities over the year or the next couple of years? Do you want to expand your business? Do you want to acquire? Do you wish to expand what your offerings are, your services are? Maybe you want to exit. Maybe you want to exit certain markets. Maybe you want to sell your business altogether. And what that means, maybe maybe your competitors are being quickly acquired, and maybe it's something you want to consider as well. And then there's your product and your service offerings. So this can also help you fine tune what you're offering and keeping competitive in the market. So if you follow social media, for example, Instagram and Facebook compete with TikTok, where the newest one is reposts. So that used to be something that was only on TikTok, and now this is becoming an Instagram thing. So looking at how you can keep up with the market and what your audience desires is something that's very important. If so, we have a case study that we'll be following through this. You might recognize this if you attended the last webinar, but for those who didn't attend that or have seen this with fresh eyes, our case study is a made-up example. So we're calling this the One and Only Agency. It's a one-woman show, a boutique marketing agency in Barrie, Ontario. Her service offerings are graphics design, paid and organic social media, and strategic planning. And her business model is project-based, based on individual hours worked. And her target market is going after small to medium businesses who just need some ad hoc marketing support. So not necessarily a fractional CMO, more like a small creative agency with some strategic planning to back it up. So that is our case study that we will use as an example of how competitor analysis applies for this webinar. Also, on our last webinar, we discussed target personas and how to develop them and make them. So right now, the reason I brought these back is this is who we're talking to. So it's always important to think of what your strategic goals are, what your plan is, and also who are you talking to. And with your competitor analysis, how are your competitors talking to them? So we had 4 profiles that come with their target personas, and it comes down to a cost-effective single service, so someone who wants cheaper services, but then they're one-offs. Also, we have the medium spend, so like a bigger offering, but they tend to purchase once per year. The next one over that was the medium spender, someone who similar price range, but purchases more frequently, so maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And then the last example we had was Mason with the renovations, and Vaughn is a high touch, high spend. So this is a customer base that needs a lot of help and willing to spend money, and they need a lot of services. So this was the targets, the audience that we've segmented. So we know who we're talking to, but now we need to understand how our competitors are talking to them and how we can either retain this audience, how we build loyalty, or maybe we want to exit in certain places. So this will help with our marketing plan overall. So when it comes down to our analysis, you want to look at many different types of competitors. So it's not just your direct competitors, so like an exact one-to-one of other one-woman marketing agencies. You want to look at who is in your geography, if they're offering the same services. It might be a big agency who are costly, but they offer lots of different packages. It might be freelance platforms like a Fiverr, or it might be DIY methods. So some of these are indirect. So a DIY method is something that would be indirect, not something you necessarily consider as a direct competitor facing after you, but people trying to make their own services with doing their own graphic design, their own strategic planning. That is something that you still have to compete with, as well as cheap platforms that have inconsistent quality. And then there's also, you want to look at aspirational competitors. So where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? So let's look at those bigger players so we can learn from them and potentially emulate what they're doing. Maybe there's some lower hanging fruit that they offer as a service or an add-on that is also possible for you in your business. So that's the buckets of the types of competitors that you want to be looking at. So how to identify your competitors. So you also know word of mouth. So customer feedback, customers do like this talk about oh, I went to this other shop in Toronto. I found them online. So ask them what were the keywords that you worked, and then what we consider is how do you use Google? That's how your audience is using Google. So they're going to be looking at best marketing agency in Barrie, or pet store near me. That's how they are finding you. That is the easiest, fastest way. So using SEO tools like Google Search can help you find those target keywords, and also help you bring up a list. Google My Business, also you'll see the list of them come up as well. Look on social media, look at your hashtags, customer feedback, and then you can also use other tools like Google Alerts, SEMrush, that can help with competitor tracking. It does take time. I suggest not leaning on AI to do this work. I know that seems like the easiest way to get a fast answer, but I find through learning about who your competitors are and actually doing the work will pay off in dividends in terms of understanding how this applies to your business. So now that we know who our competitors are, who are talking to our audience, and we have our goals, now we want to look at what are we actually analyzing? What is that one-to-one comparison going to look at? So this is a list of the main areas. You can add your own or take things out depending on what matters to you, but these are the ones that do matter. So you want to look at products and services. So is there anything unique? Are you all the same? In that case, if you all offer the same widget, what else about you is different? So if you're a plumbing store and you offer the same parts as the next plumbing store, you have to think about what is different about your offering and your service that people will want to come to you. You want to look at marketing. So you want to see about their messaging, what channels they use. So some might be using Facebook, some might be using Instagram, some of them might be using a hash of all of these things. They might be using Google Ads. Try and find what you can. It doesn't have to be a fully comprehensive piece, but it should be pretty in-depth enough to really understand what they're doing of finding those promotions. Sometimes it can be difficult to find. If you're looking at different sponsors, they don't necessarily put all the logos of their sponsors on their website. So that's something that can come when you start digging through their online presence, which is our next item. So their social media, their engagement. Do they have a huge audience, but not a lot of shares and likes and not very many comments? That to me would strike that they've probably purchased followers. Or they've done promotions where they've added followers or contests. And you can see that in their work rather than actually having an engaged online community. So that's something to bear in mind. Look at their customer base. How different are they to you? So for example, I said I broke out our one case study, the one and only marketing agency, our one woman show here. She has 4, and it comes down to high spend, high touch, and then, the cost effective single service. Maybe there's other agencies that only focus on these one-off pieces. They're a graphic design house, and that's what they specialize in, and they don't really care about working with those high touch groups. So that's something to consider, how they're different. Also look at loyalty indicators. You will see social media is a good place to find that, with people commenting, who they're tagged with, especially if there's tagged with sponsorships or anything. Look for those little signals and what they mean for moving the line with your business as well. Strengths. Where are they doing exceptionally well? What do you love? What are the things that make you jealous and that you wish you had? Those are important things to look at. And then look at weaknesses. Look at the gaps that they're offering where you're doing better, but maybe you just need to tell that story more. Maybe you're missing a mark somewhere in how you tell that story, where I do this better. So that's the main framework to analyze and look at. You can, like I said, you can add other things, but that's the umbrella. So this comes down to the methods and data sources that you can use. So where can you find information? So we know what we're looking for. Where do we go for it? So comparator websites, study them, analyze them, look at their social media. That's a big one. You can also find third-party industry reports and news articles. Searching newspapers and local newspapers online is a good place to start to see. Sometimes they do PR and media releases. You can even put their name plus sponsorships and see what pops up, and you might be able to see, they're sponsoring a children's festival in Toronto. That's a way you can kind of start digging up who they're talking to. Blogs and review sites. Reddit can be useful. Be careful with that one, but you can use crowdsourced information. Customer feedback, so that's easy. Google reviews, Google My Business, Yahoo, Indeed, all those different review pages. And then SEO tools, for traffic and keyword analysis. And then you want to use some techniques to add some structure to this. So we have the SWOT analysis, which is basically a compass, usually like a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We will dive into these more. Feature comparison charts, one-to-one with how you compare to them. Positioning charts, which is your position in the market and how the customer perceives you. And then there's your market share, so how much people own what of the market, of the audience. And this is where we dig in a little deeper into those analysis methods. So SWOTs is the classic one. This is looking at what makes you strong for the strengths. So these are your strengths. What makes you weak in the market? Do you have a high price point, a limited product range? Are you slow to adapt? But are you very strong in customer service? Do you have a very engaged community? Is there proprietary tech that you own that no one else in the market owns? And then this is your external audience. So this is looking at your competitors. So like, what opportunities are there in the market, and also threats. So are there any new entrants? AI can be a threat and an opportunity, in terms of maybe people are using AI to create their own graphic design, but AI might be an opportunity where they can't do strategic planning with that. It doesn't give them anything unique. It's just giving them the best of averages. So this is the classic tool. And then we can look at as well a feature comparison chart. So this is more of a plug and play for the data. So you put in the feature U, competitor A, competitor B, and you can actually start looking at it with the bird's eye view of what's different, who has what, and this will give you an overview of, you can kind of see if you're an outlier or if you're an average, like where you sit in the market. And then this comes to, I like a positioning map. This is created by you though. So this is using what you know from your feature comparison chart, from what you've gathered from your other analysis. This isn't a fully comprehensive report. These are just some tools we can show. So once you know how your customers view, when you look at reviews, where like, oh, this person was too expensive or the customer service was terrible, you can kind of pull together your own positioning map. So for this example, this is one that's pulled off the internet. So you can see high quality, high price, low price, and low quality, and how you fit on this position. How do customers perceive you in this market? So here, Starbucks, very famous brand, is seen as high quality, high price. It's not quite Cafe Godiva, but it's still considered high quality, high price in the market, compared to a McCafe, which is low price, low quality. Now, Starbucks, to compete, doesn't want to be a McDonald's. That's not their perception. However, if they're competing with Lavazza, they might want to be seen as a higher quality. So they might want to move their circle over time just up here. They might just want to move it just up a little bit higher than Lavazza. So whereas Lavazza then would then become a lower quality but expensive for what is. But maybe they want to move up in quality and stay priced. So this is about perceptions, about where you want to move over time and understanding where you fit in the market. So maybe you're a McCafe. Maybe you're like, no, I want high velocity in my service. So I want to be in this market. I actually don't want to compete with Starbucks. It's too expensive, the overhead. So this is a good way to see the map of it. But remember, it's from the perception of your customers, how they perceive you. And then this is the market share. Sometimes, depending on the size of your business, usually larger businesses, they can get real numbers from Nielsen. For example, Starbucks knows how much of the market share they own over Tim Hortons or McDonald's. You can kind of fudge it a little bit for the smaller, medium businesses, understanding like, okay, this group really has a lot of, if we're going back to our one and only case study, this group has a lot of pet shops. I don't have as many pet shops. Or this group has a lot of the Toronto market. So you can understand how that pie breaks apart, whereas you might not have as much as the Toronto. You might have a sliver because it is a bigger market. But in Barrie, if you were to compare that, you might own a pretty huge share of Barrie. And your other competitors might be newer entrants, so they might not have as much. So that one, these ones are a little art and science for these ones. And that's why I suggest not leaning too hard on AI, but actually really studying your market and who your competitors are. Okay, now that we've done these tools, what now? What do we do with it? Why have I made this analysis and spent a lot of time researching on the internet, understanding what the offerings are, refining my position? We want to do something with it. So for when you can start refining your positions. So you might think, I want to go up on the quality, or maybe I want to hit that higher price range, or maybe I want to go into a lower price range. That seems to be an open market for me. So you want to understand where you want to go on that compass for your positioning. You can improve your offerings. You can adjust. You can add to compete. If there's something that everyone in the market is offering but you, then you need to consider adding that. Or maybe you want to see, none of them are offering this one product, but I am. So I have, first mover's advantage. So I want to promote that in my communications. Sharpen, so develop your clear messaging, identify your specific niche, so that can form your promotions plan for the next year. And then also, of course, your strategic decisions. Do we stay as is? Do we remove? Do we take? That is something to consider for your goals. So when we look at our one-woman case study, this is what the results of all that work was. Who is talking to her market? So we had 4 profiles before. So now we've identified a niche, which is there's strong clientele potential in Vaughn's home rental companies. That was our high touch, high spender, and that was a big part of our market share was that group. For the market saturation, this marketing agency found it was too highly competitive and too saturated when this marketing agency already had a name built in Vaughan. So probably going to choose to exit those markets, because to get in to pay is a high cost. There is an overlooked segment. So the larger agencies, while focused on the Toronto and Barrie market, they're not really looking at Vaughn's rental companies. So that is an opportunity. And then there's also referral power. The home rental companies speak to each other. The clients are word of mouth, so through referrals, so not just trade shows or ads. So they found there was some opportunities and some strengths and weaknesses that came up with our competitor analysis. So weak in the Toronto and Barrie markets, but really strong in Vaughan with home renos. Other competitors weren't really looking there, and this agency is getting a lot of referrals. So they've now are going to position themselves as a fractional CMO instead. So moving towards specialized industry expertise, being like, we know home rental companies in Vaughan and what you need, and we can work on fewer clients rather for repeat business rather than chasing those cheaper one-off services, which are low profit margins for the business overall. So some best practices and pitfalls. You want to act on your insights. So this isn't a make work project. You are collecting this as a living document that is meant to help form your business goals, and also will be defining a major pillar of your marketing plan. So we don't want to just sit there. You want to make sure that you're translating these findings into actual strategies and informing you where to go next. You also want to be aware of bias. So you want to actively seek diverse data points. You don't want to just confirm what you believe you are. So you might believe that you have a high quality, high price point positioning in the market, but you might actually be seen as lower cost and lower quality. So, and that is a real conversation to have. We can have aspirations, but we also want to have a real understanding of who we actually really are in the market and seen as by consumers. We got to take our ego out of it. And then it comes down to regular refresh, whether that's you do this yearly, twice a year. It shouldn't just be a one-off because the market is changing. AI, as we all know, is changing the market in big ways, and the tools that are coming out, so that it is important to stay, keep on top of what your competitors are doing. And you also really want to look at credible sources. So there are other guides out there for competitor analysis. You can look at Asana. BDC has a good guide for competitor analysis. You want to make sure that you're looking at industry reports with some credibility behind them. Be careful what you pay for on the internet. So that is something to consider as well. And now we have some local resources. With Sandbox, you have access to the Barrie Public Library. So there's a wide variety of things that are available as part of your Sandbox membership. So this is at a glance: Stats Canada, Invest Barrie, Canada Post Targeter, Cedar. There's all sorts of things that are available, and you can reach out to wonderful people like Sam and Sandbox to help you with your competitor analysis. This doesn't have to be a fully DIY project. There are many resources out there for you. And that's the end of the webinar. Thank you for attending. My name is Karlee. You can find me on LinkedIn. There will be another webinar coming later this fall on marketing planning. So thank you very much for spending this time with me.